The New Zealand racing industry has lost a true icon in former jockey and trainer Trevor John McKee, who passed away at the age of 81 following a long illness. McKee was born in the Thames Valley area, the oldest son of Sid and Thelma McKee, and older brother of Alan. Upon leaving school, McKee was indentured to Tom Morrow at Te Rapa, alongside fellow apprentice Alan Jones. Morrow, a part-time builder, also had his two apprentices working towards building apprenticeships, but racing would remain their first love. For McKee, stints with Ray Wallace and Ray Cotter followed, and at the end of his apprenticeship, he was drafted into the New Zealand Army, where he worked as a cook. The job added weight to his lean frame, which became problematic when he returned to the riding ranks, and therefore a transition to training was made. Around the same time, McKee married Nolene Walker, and the couple had 3 children, Suzanne, Stephen and Donna. Son Stephen said it was a horse called Proud Chief that set his father's training career on the right track. He said his father raced the Avondale Cup winner all over the country and literally trained him from a horse float. From winning races around the country to winning races around the world alongside son Stephen, the McKees formed a successful and ultimately formidable training partnership, thanks in part to champion race mare Sunline.
But the champion mare is going to kill them. She's 5 in front, Sunline, and a piece of racing history. Back-to-back Cox Plates for the champion mare Sunline. She's won it by 6 lengths easily.
When she retired in 2002, Sunline had furnished a record of 48 starts for 32 wins, including 2 Cox Plates at Moonee Valley, 2 Doncaster handicaps at Randwick and a Hong Kong mile. Her stake earnings of over 14 million New Zealand dollars was, at the time, a record for a horse trained in Australasia. While records are incomplete, McKee's son believes his father trained around 1,200 winners, both in partnership and in his own right. McKee loved ballroom dancing, driving the horse float and training winners. But more than that, he loved his family and leaves behind wife Nolene, his 3 children, 5 grandchildren and 1 great-granddaughter. McKee won the Outstanding Contribution to Racing Award in 2012, but it's fair to say his contribution to the sport will live on for many years to come.
Yes, a week of loss, it seems, with the New Zealand racing industry and fans set on our heels on Friday afternoon with the announcement of the loss of the grand man, TJ McKee, at the age of 81. Hey race fans, welcome into Weigh-In. We're stretching out over a wee bit more ground today, which allows us a few season highlights, also spend more time on TJ McKee, as well as a great quota of international racing and a MAC discussion with Dean McKenzie coming up in our hour and a half long special this morning to mark the end of the weigh-in season, although of course not the racing season. Joined as usual by Michael Guerin and Bruce Sherwin. Start of a 10, I suppose, Bruce. A TJ McKee moment?
Yeah, well, many, I guess, because he was the kind of person, a legend of the sport, but he always had time of day for anyone. He was happy to impart his knowledge, just a really special man.
And Mick, you know, one from me before, you probably have more than most, but yet never backward in wanting to have a conversation, no matter how busy he was on a racetrack. Always said g'day and wanted to talk about the races or you. Good fella.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Sunday morning. When I first got to Auckland about 30 years ago, I was a total unknown to Trevor and almost everybody else. And he was one of those people who, obviously, I knew who he was because he was so successful in the game. But he treated me exactly like if he had known me for 20 years. And that never changed over the 30 years I knew him, even up till, say, 8 or 10 weeks ago when he was probably coming to the races for a couple of the last times. Always the suit, always impeccably dressed, as men of his generation in racing tended to be, and always the handshake. Even if you were on air, he would walk past you and the hand always out.
Always
shake.
Always
exactly, and always in for a chat. And that's one of the few things that racing has which other industries don't have. If you're in computer programming, you don't get to meet the leading computer programmers in the world. But in racing, you get to meet the absolute champions of racing just by being in the industry. And that's one of the great assets we have, is the knowledge those people give you. So he's a man I liked a lot. He's raised a wonderful family. So to Mrs. McKee and to Stephen and Donna and Suzanne and to all their children, yeah, a really sad time. But Trevor will be farewelled officially for all your racing people out there who want to attend. 1 o'clock at Ellerslie on Thursday. So that's appropriate, fellas, because of course, while Sunline wasn't the extent of Trevor's training success, she's also buried at Ellerslie. So there'll be a private service for the family only, but then there'll be a memorial service for racing people and anybody else who wants to join at 1 o'clock at Ellerslie on Thursday. And I would imagine there'll be a lot of stories there. And when I had a really long talk to Stephen about this on Friday, he said the one thing about his dad he admired more than almost anything else was his work ethic. He would put a horse in the float and float it all the way to wherever it needed to go to win, which is something which people who grow up with that much money and want to get some money have to do. So, gee, there was... I didn't meet many people in racing who didn't like and respect Trevor.
It reminds me of a trackside moment, actually, just lastly on that, even though we will be revisiting Trevor and get the thoughts of other people who've been associated with him over the years. I remember being on trackside at Hawke's Bay once, and it must have been sort of downtime between races, and he came up, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Never be idle, son, never be idle." As he carried the saddle off, and he was probably saddling up Sunline. Anyway, we've got plenty of racing to get through on our hour-and-a-half special this morning. On our racetrack, I guess the fillies and mares were positioning themselves for prospects later on after their race careers, with feature events for the fillies and mares in New Zealand, looking forward to their broodmare careers. And the biggest race of the weekend was the last of the Group 1s, the New Zealand Thoroughbred Breeders' Stakes, and a horse that wanted to grab Group 1 glory by the scruff of the neck, putting a frustrating season behind her, was the horse in front at the moment, Nicoletta. Hands and heels and more from Jake Bayliss, getting her home finally towards the end of the season.
It's Nicoletta in front. Supera's trying to pick it up with Lover. Nicoletta, Supera lunge, just missed. Nicoletta in a daring ride has won the...
So the former Group 3 winner back in the spring, the Taranaki Richhill Breeders' Stakes in the spring, that had been her biggest prize to date, but she had been last year placed in a Herbie Dyke and 4th in Oaks back in a year, but she gets the Group 1 glory. It was a very aggressive ride from Jake Bayliss from the outside gate, intent on leading. And as you will see on the side on, perhaps, they were quite a way in front, and it did look like they were running it hard. I reviewed the race before I saw the sections. I thought they'd gone quite quickly. The field opened up, but they've come home in 33.86. So Luke Castile was the horse, another of the horses we expect to be on pace, gets quite fired up in the trail behind of Nicoletta, gets a little bit of a breather in front here. Supera getting tightened up inside of Lover back and forth. And then he just rolls around the bend, and he really puts the hammer down shortly and goes for home. So I'm thinking this was going to be quite a stoutly run race with a slow finishing, but it's not the fact. It's been really well rated, 33.86. It's suited on speeders, and if you look at the shape of the race, the Real Beal in the Waikato stud colours, a little unlucky here, was coming to run 3rd or 4th and gets chopped out of it. But the first 5 around the turn are the first 5 home, so it's been very much on pace. Backmarkers never got into it at all. And
Mick, this was flagged actually by Andrew Forsman earlier in the day on trackside, that she was going to grab it by the scruff of the neck, take luck out of the question, because it had been a sort of frustrating season for them.
Lovely ride. Jake got it inch perfect because he rolled forward enough to deter people, and they knew once he got there he was going to stay there, so there's no point taking off. 33.8 is awfully quick, you know, off the front this time of the year when the track's just starting to get a little bit of sting out of them. I thought she was excellent, and obviously for Andrew personally, Murray and Andrew together have now trained 100 stakes winners. So for Andrew, that's a big deal because he's only been officially training for 7 years, and this is their 20th stakes winner for the season. Now, it's only April. I would suggest they'll pick up a 2 or a 3-year-old race somewhere along the line. So they're in for a record season. Let's hear from the connections, and we can talk a little bit more about what's a remarkable achievement from a guy who's on that new wave of top young trainers coming through.
Joined by Andrew Forsman. And Andrew, we spoke a couple of hours ago just around tactically she could be a great chance in the race because of her speed, and the only horse who can find that forward position, and she's found that spot and she's toughed it out.
Yeah, he rode her a treat. She's twice Group 1 place. She was winning, deserving of a Group 1 win. I'm glad she's got it. She doesn't have to do much more now, and he just timed it to perfection. I said, look, just outstay them. She won't beat them in a sprint home, so he took it to them, and she was just the fittest, toughest horse, and they were coming at her late, but he got it right.
She came in with variable form lines, but you sort of dig into that run last time to the races. It wasn't that bad, was it, when presented at Tauranga?
No, she just hasn't had anything go right, all preparation, and she hasn't been going poorly. She looked outstanding today, and I just said to Jake, look, she's hard fit, she's ready to go, just put her in the race and give her a chance.
As you spoke about a couple of Group 1 placings, one of them in this race last year when finishing third.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, she's thereabouts. She's good enough to beat these sort of horses. Just got to have things to suit, and she got it today.
Jake Bayliss joins me. Well done, Jake. We spoke to Andrew. Instructions was to try and outstay them, get front, get rolling, and you've done exactly that.
Yeah, look, I gave her a little bit of a chance just because of the way she was going to be ridden. But there's some quality horses in the field, and you know, like when you go that speed, you're setting it up for the back markers, especially Volpe Veloce. But you know, she stuck to her guns, and I put it to her at the 700, and I've already gave her a couple around the backside before we even straightened up. So what a brave run! I just can't believe my third Group 1. Mum's here to watch it, and it's just special.
Yeah, she might need to move here because she's might be the lucky charm for you, Jake.
She's lucky charm. Unfortunately, I'm off to Brisbane again in 2 weeks' time for the carnival, and just enjoy some family time, and then you'll see me back over again near August.
Well, congratulations. Well done, you, Jake.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Tell us about Nicoletta, mate. How does that make you feel?
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, she deserved it. You know, she came up so well right at the beginning of the season when she won at Hara. She won the Group 3. Before that, Murray said she was going to be in for a huge season. And I think it probably just, she won so well. It was a hard run. She went into it without a trial. And I think probably knocked the stuffing out of her, really. So it's taken a long time to sort of come right and get the track sort of that she needed. So, no, it was deserving, fitting.
You're not at Te Aroha, you're here. Where did you watch it?
Actually watched it on my iPhone up in the owners area here at Randwick. So, pretty exciting.
So Bruce Perry, who gets to select most of the horses for those colours, and he has a penchant for picking the right Savabeel filly or mare, or filly at the yearling sales. In terms of her getting the job done, that was fair enough. She was probably having one of those frustrating seasons. We're going to have a listen to the beaten jockeys shortly. Those in behind, Volpe Veloce, was she just at the end of her tether for the season, you think? Or?
She didn't look as good as she did previous start at Tauranga, so yeah, she wasn't at her absolute concert pitch yesterday.
Interesting to see what they do with this horse now, because she's done enough. She can be retired, obviously, but she has the option to maybe head to Queensland. I would have thought she would be very handy around there because she can run on the speed. Yep. I presume they'll keep her because she's a Group 1 winner rather than put her through the sales on the Gold Coast. But yeah, she's indicative of a Baker Forsman horse. Go forward, take luck out of the play, rock hard fit. Maybe not the best horse in the field, but they'll win because so often they are able to work in their races. It's a big deal for Andrew. I mean, 100 stakes winners, you know, that's the stage of your career when you come from a situation where you don't have a family background in racing. He doesn't have a name to carry him into the industry. And that comes from work. I've had a fair bit to do with Andrew, not only just here at Trackside, but just from having horses in the barn. Last week he's over in Sydney for the Tulloch, and you've got to turn up and dress and act a certain way. And then you've got to turn up for this race meeting, you've got to turn up today for Pukekohe. For a lot of these young trainers, it's an everyday grind. And he ticks all the boxes. He does the media very well, he talks to the owners very well, he's always planning. When you talk to him on a Wednesday afternoon, he's talking about this filly, which we've got in 2 weeks' time for this race at Tauranga. He's not the only trainer in the country who does that, most of them do, but to have these young guys like him and Jamie, who's doing a great job, Jamie Richards and Stephen Marsh, and there's plenty of others, Andrew Carson down your way, these young guys give you hope that you can turn the industry around for them so we can keep them here in New Zealand.
As Bruce sort of alluded to, I suppose most of the jockeys in behind were probably thinking that, well, they can go as fast as they like, that's going to be good for me out the back here. Let's see what they thought of the end game for the Thoroughbred Breeders' Stakes yesterday as they looked at it.
Yeah, super run. Enjoyed a nice run all the way, a little bit tight inside Lee Finnis most of the way on the fence, but sort of struggled a little bit off the home turn, trying to quicken in, and hit his straps halfway down, and at the 100 I thought I'd pick it up, but the Baker Forsman stuff kicked in too late, but no, great run.
Yeah, no, it was a super run. Just probably if the track had a bit of rain on it, it might have suited it a little bit better, but, you know, full credit to the winner, run us off his feet.
I thought she ran really good. Got a beautiful run, tracked into it good. The way they went around the turns, more or less the way they ended up at the winning post, you know. But I thought her run was super. I look forward to riding her next time in.
She went very well, like the toughest test she's gone against, and she's got taken off the bridle at the 600, which probably didn't suit her. She's a sitting sprint horse, and no, she's stuck on very well.
So that was the wash-up of the New Zealand Thoroughbred Breeder Stakes yesterday, won by Nicoletta. Boom, well, not a boom, but some lovely 3-year-olds at the love on the support card in race 4. It was probably highlighted or headlined by the horse in front at the moment in the black and white Dawn Patrol. However, the Guineas boys and girls had to make way for a newcomer in the blue and gold.
Now riding the wave, ranged up, anything but poking through on the inside. Out wide, Peaceful. Further out, Espresso Martini. It's riding the wave. Got into overdrive, short of the line, and the big boy wins. Riding the wave, impressive. Second over was anything but third, Peaceful.
Well, Nigel, you asked a question if he could swim in the deep end, and you certainly found out today, because that was an impressive one.
Yeah, look, he's a serious horse, Brendan. He just did a few things wrong with his first couple of starts, and we gave him a break and started again with him, changed a bit of gear with him, and yeah, he's the real deal, I think.
Gee, he certainly just arrived on the point of the bend. You could see the way that he travelled into it. Were you happy in the run watching from the stands?
Yeah, look, you know, put a rider like Leith on, they know what they're doing. They've got the horsepower underneath them. You just leave it to them. So as soon as I saw him come out 3 deep on the corner, I thought, hello, here we go.
Okay, well, you're not adverse to trying to travel a horse to Australia through the Brisbane Winter Carnival. Is there anything on the radar for what you've seen here today?
Look, we discussed that, and I said if he wins today, we're going to have to consider it. So I'll have a chat to Leith. I mean, I know Leith's got a big rap on him, but I would think he'll be on the plane.
All right. Well done, you, Nigel.
Great, thanks, Brendan.
Good work.
So that was the big push afterwards for an Australian campaign. Nigel Tyler gave a hint before the race that this could have been on the cards. Patience has paid off with a good horse by the looks of things.
It's been a revelation, this prep. He was beaten at $1.70 and $1.90 his first preparation. He's come back, he was super at Avondale midweek, and then he's gone out. He's still learning, he's not fully refined. When he came out, he floated a bit in, his head's a bit up, but geez,
So tell me about Malibu Moon, because his stallion's a horse I honestly can't say anything about.
Yeah, he's an American stallion. It's quite an interesting story. He only had 2 starts in his career. He slab fracture in a knee at his second start. He went to stud at $3,000 and he left a Kentucky Derby winner. He now stands at $75,000 US.
So how would he have ended up here?
Yeah, a mare would have come out, someone's brought a mare infoal to him in America, Southern Hemisphere time, sold in Australia.
When you look at a guy like Nigel, and you can't fluke this, he just consistently turns up with these horses like Spirits or Beer earlier this year, who they sold, that are just sellable. Like, imagine what this horse is worth. You know, and obviously he may go to Queensland, but you know he's still only 3, so there's the option to maybe try and move him. But he's one of those people who every year just seems to find a horse he can trade somewhere or race somewhere. And it's been going on for too long to be a fluke.
Speaking of boom horses, what do we make of Dawn Patrol? Is he just out of control early and that cost him
he never actually settled at any stage. He went too keen early, and even if you watch him coming around the bend, he's still hard on the bridle.
The problem with that is when they do that and behave that way, because obviously Queensland would have been on their radar.
For sure.
It's really hard to say, I want to spend 20 or 30,000 to go to Queensland if you're thinking he might be over the top. And he hasn't enough racing to be over the top physically. So, I don't know, there'd be some questions there. There'd need to be a long lunch and some decisions made.
Espresso Martini's very good. 3 wide, no cover, and push wide on the bend.
Okay, speaking of horses that wanted to get on with the job, let's go down south and have a look at the feature fillies race there, the New Zealand Air Freight Stakes. Emily Margaret, hammer and tongs from the gate. She was about 8 lengths in front at the 800 metre mark, and still clear from Secret Allure, who at the 800 metre mark was second to last, and these two pretty much had it to themselves, although not for much longer.
Valencia, Emily Margaret, 250 to go, is in big danger by Secret Allure, who went on by. Then Platinum Rapper, Mohaka next from our Hail Mary. Secret Allure's a length clear on Emily Margaret. She has it won, Secret Allure. She's going to win the Air Freight Stakes for NZB, and Secret Allure has been...
Let's take a look at the stewards' footage, and well, over on the right, the Form Pro last 600, it tells a tale, doesn't it, home in 37.86, so She'd just gone out too hard, Emily Margaret. They were going really slow early. It was a really bunched field. Let's see a bit of interference there in amongst the field. But it looked like she got to the front and she just takes charge of it. I don't know whether it was a deliberate ploy to go so far in front, but he's just half let her roll as she takes her hold. Gets a long way clear. Meantime, Secret Allure's out the back last, and this is a really good ride to watch through the pack. Watch Lisa Allpress in those purple colours from near last, just slices through them around the bend. As Emily Margaret, hard to believe she came from last when winning the Wellington Guineas last time. This time she's 8 in front at the 600 metres, Mick.
Yeah, and it's easy to be critical of the ride when you get beat, but she beat the others by such a long
they get
margin
the others.
that it just maybe, to be perfectly honest, maybe Secret Allure is just slightly better than Emily Margaret. And I know she was so good against the boys last time, but I'm not sure how that form's stacking up after what we saw from Dawn Patrol yesterday.
Maybe he, in terms of the ride, maybe, you know, there was quite a bit of banging and crashing in behind him, and he's out in front, clear of the pack, and thought, I'll just let this thing run and they can argue amongst themselves for about 800 metres, and she's probably given her form good enough to hold on. She just had Secret Allure, who was in the ruck, get a nice run through the pack, and she was the one that was capable, I suppose, of chasing her down, and none of the others were.
Now, she'll stick around for the War Step, or Secret Allure, so she will stick around for the War Step, but Lisa Allpress was the jockey who, as Sheldie said, produced the ride of the day.
Well, she's a class filly, and we just saw that.
Yeah, I knew that before I got to ride her today, so I was really I was pleased when Andy and Lisa had contacted me about riding her down here, and got a nice feel of her at the trials last week at Foxton, and I was very happy with her, and she was just a delightful little girl to ride today, no problem at all.
Tell us about the run you got, because arch rival for this race anyway, Emily Margaret got a long way in front.
I couldn't even see where Emily Margaret was. I was sort of concentrating on the action that was in front of me and sort of looking for a run through. I did really want to be out, but I couldn't sort of get any run out there, so I sort of had to chase up a run through them, and then just took to the outside once the one in front of me went in. So yeah, just it panned out really well.
She gave us a great sight.
Yeah, she jumped well, and the plan was sort of just let her do her own thing. She went along at her own leisurely rate, and I feel like she was pretty comfortable, had a lot of horse at the top of the straight and give a good kick. I think she just got beat by a better filly on the day.
In saying that, she secured the Southern Filly of the Year, and she thoroughly deserves that.
Well deserved. She's a very good filly, and I'm glad that I'll be able to associate myself with her. You know, she's done a good job, and you know, the owners were very proud of her.
And she beat the others just as easily.
Correct, you know, maybe if it was 14 today, that's probably her distance. It could have been a different story, but no, she ran well.
That was a very creditable performance.
Yeah, for sure. It was a lovely run. She's come from a long way back, and she's made up a heck of a lot of ground, and I think she'll be a very nice staying mare next time around.
Yeah, when you consider what she's gone through this campaign, there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, she's had a few little hiccups since she's been down here, so yeah, it's been a pretty massive run considering, and yeah, like I say, something to look forward to next season.
Chris, tell us about the run you got.
Got a beautiful run during the race, and moved into it nicely and sort of had every chance, but maybe just a little bit weak, didn't quite run the strong mile.
Sam, you've had a couple of rides on her now, and she's found the line in both of them.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was a good run going forward to the 2,000 metres next week. It was a good field today, so it was a good run hitting the line.
Emily Margaret, with that second placing, does enough to seal South Island Filly of the Year, much deserved. She's had a terrific season. The second place, Secret Allure, she's out of the winner. Secret Allure is out of an O'Reilly mare, a full sister to Ombre Rose, a filly you know a bit about.
Yeah, Ombre Rose actually won that race back in 2006, and yeah, Secret sent a full sister, the dam of Secret Allure, to Ombre Rose, and I think we sold her for nice money at the sales. Bart Cummings trained her for a couple of wins, I think, in Sydney, and she was a bit of a barrier rogue, but for all intents and purposes, she's going to kick on as a broodmare. And
absolutely. She's still kicking around, Ombre Rose?
Ombre Rose is, yes. She's actually got, I think, a McPhee colt in the South Island sale coming up. And I guess Inglewood Stud will be pretty happy to have Secret sent a South Island bred filly, obviously, with Zakinto in the mix there. And everyone seems to be going to Zakinto in terms of the relations now. There's Zakinto colts and fillies on the way into both those mares. So, as far as the War Step goes, 2,000 metres, I suppose, has been a question mark with Secret Allure, but she did win at Ellerslie, or did she win at Ellerslie or run second at Ellerslie over 2,000 metres in a slow run race? But based on what we saw there,
and ridden from last like she was there,
you wouldn't think any of those fillies
were going to try it, because they've distanced the others. They're just better.
Yeah. she's just a wee bit better than them. Yeah, Hail Mary was good and improved, and as we heard from a couple of the connections there, there's a few looking forward to that 2,000 metre race coming up next Saturday at Riccarton, the Warstep Stakes. Sam Wynn was in amongst the beaten jocks there, but she wasn't on one of her favourite horses in the Easter Cup. Who Dares Wins. He's sort of a bit of an underdog who has run second in the Winter Cup. He ran second in the Canterbury Gold Cup, but today, fresh up after a long break, he finally overachieved.
To come at them now, Contessa Vanessa, Flying Sardine, Who Dares Wins from the back, Residential leads Contessa Vanessa, Who Dares Wins outside of them closes, Who Dares Wins has gone up to Residential and Contessa Vanessa, and Who Dares Wins is off with the Easter Cup. Who Dares Wins has beaten...
And geez, he would have been a bit unlucky if beaten Who Dares Wins. He was held up, blocked, changed ground in the home straight, taken back from the wide gate, 36.39 run home. So probably didn't really suit the closers, but there was never a great deal over them. Steady tempo only in the early stages. Who Dares Wins going back. Residential's been racing in great form. It's actually Who Dares Wins' first win on a heavy track. He's had 7 previous goes. And watch him here in those stripe colours near last. Residential, the Waikato stud colours to his outside. He's in traffic for a long time, but it actually might be the way to ride him. Just held up and produced late. Contessa Vanessa in those pale blue red colours, she got a nice drag into the race, and these 3 eventually come clear. It's a bit of a bunch finish. I'm not sure how strong it is going forward, but he would have been an unlucky loser. Who
Residential was a good run because she doesn't like those track conditions, and she was first under pressure.
She's never actually won on a track worse than Dead Residential.
To keep going was a good run.
I think the class horses were the 4 there.
Contessa Vanessa every show.
Yep.
Good to see Sam back. I mean, Sam was away for a long time. It must have been, it felt like about a year. She felt like she was out of the saddle for a long time. So, and she adds enormously to that depth in the South Island, not only because she's now a senior rider, but she's very good at communicating to the trainers what the horse has done. Well, she's ridden a couple of times for us, and she'll come and say, okay, well, this happened, and this happened. And that's really important because sometimes from the apprentices, you don't get that sort of feedback, Bruce. And
you're only as good as the feedback
exactly
you're getting.
Right. So, yeah, it's good. She's a huge help to the South Island. What I didn't like, to be honest, was watching horses coming down the outside because you go, oh no, summer's gone, it's all over and done with now. And I know it happened at Ellerslie on Cup Day, but it just had that feeling of winter days to come. But I think the weather will bounce back for another month or so, we can only hope.
I don't think Tony and Lynn Prendergast and Sam Wynn were too worried about where they came from because it was a pretty, impressive training feat to get that horse first up after a break to win such a nice race.
Tony Prendergast, will just grab you for a quick word. That is some training performance to get him ready for today.
Yeah, it hadn't been easy. It's 4 months since he raced. Had a couple of trials, but not much opposition. So we had to work, everything worked out good in the finish.
How confident were you coming into today?
I beg your pardon?
How confident were you coming into today?
We weren't overconfident. We knew he was really well. We just worried about him not being quite as seasoned as some of the others. That was our big worry when the track got wet.
Samantha Wynn, she's had a good association with this horse and she's ridden him beautifully today.
She did. She really did, yeah.
Big group of owners. They're going to have a whole lot of fun, aren't they? Well done.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg.
Congratulations, Sam. Gee, you've got a lot of time for this horse and he's delivered first up. That took some effort.
Oh, for sure. Credit goes to Tony and Lynn and the team at home. I'm just so very grateful that they put me on after such a long injury, and thank you to them. So I'm very grateful.
Tell us about the run you got and at what point you thought, gee, I'm going to win this, because he's won it very comfortably in the end.
Yeah, well, when you're pulling off heels at the 700 at Riccarton, you're travelling not too bad, but look, I thought I was going to be a bit unlucky at first, but that probably done me favours. And he's on to bigger and better things, I think.
Yeah, a whole lot to look forward to for him. Well done getting back into stakes winning form.
Thank you. Bring on the next one.
Well, she gave you a great ride.
She did, Greg. She was really lovely to ride, and the plan was, well, there wasn't really a great deal of plans because her racing form's been pretty mixed recently. She's been handy, forward and back, so it was sort of just see how we went from the jump, and probably got a little bit too far back, but then I had Who Dares Wins inside me, and I could see she was struggling for room and didn't have a lot of space, so I sort of thought if I kicked off around them and got away from it, that was nearly the winning of the race, but she's come from behind me and grabbed me, so yeah. But she went really well. She's a lovely mare and she tried really hard.
Another good run, Chris, but she's just found 2 better.
Yeah, honest attempt, she jumped, put herself there, and tried hard. She just sort of couldn't find any extra in the going, maybe.
Leah, tell us about the run you got.
Yeah, she was quite handy. She would have been better chasing them. There was a little bit of buffing at the top of the straight, which has really knocked it out of her.
She still won a pretty good race and another stakes placing for her.
Yeah, definitely. Like, she's a tough little horse, and like, she'll get one somewhere, but I just think she kind of needs everything going her way.
Terry, you got a bit cluttered up today. Did that help his chances?
I don't think it really hindered us. I was getting a reasonably nice trip behind Kentessa Vanessa, the favourite, most of the way, and I had the winner that was bolting outside us the whole way, Who Dares Wins, and in the ideal world it would have been nice to just come out a little bit further out. I think the track was just a wee bit quicker on the outside, and Who Dares Wins had no weight either, so it got the fast lane and lightweight. Next week we'd wait for age, we'll be better suited, but it was a good run from that point of view.
Mo's had a good day at Riccarton yesterday, won a couple, including on a rating 65 horse that might have a decent race in him called Irish Excuse. No, Irish Express is related to Irish Excuse and Accidental Offside. And Signify won the sprint. That was the New Zealand wrap after the race. After the break, rather, we've got racing from the Kiwis in Australia en masse, trying to take some spoils on day one of the championships at Royal Randwick.
Further back, Land of Plenty, and Elise is the last one. It's Dreamforce coming around the turn in front from the Colt Brutal. Hartnell's easing out 3 deep from 50 Stars and Fundamentalist, and further back to Le Remain. Dreamforce up the rise, a length clear from Brutal, sticking on, 2 off to Hartnell. Further back to Le Remain. Dreamforce the leader. Brutal has him in his sights now, and Brutal draws level with Dreamforce. 3 clear from Hartnell and Le Remain. Boss takes the favourite to the front. Brutal late in a bit, but he's edging clear from Dreamforce, and it's another Doncaster for Glenn Boss. Brutal won it by 2 lengths to Dreamforce.
It's all in Australia for the next 20 minutes or so on weigh-in, and the O'Reilly Colt Brutal off the back of a hot spring, getting the job done for Glenn Boss, who I think won his 7th Doncaster handicap. Well, we were queuing up for the spoils, I suppose, we thought anyway, going into Championships Day, and the Australian Derby was the one that we were probably going to get the spoils or the chocolates from, I suppose, but a Kiwi-trained winner wasn't to be, because the horse that spoiled us last week, Angel of Truth, did pretty much the same again here, boys.
Yeah, it became the 3rd horse in succession to do that Tulloch Derby double. John Snow and Lavendi last year. Just off the front, it was a sedately run derby, so he was in the right spot, was Angel of Truth, and stayed on strongly. I was in Sydney, it rained heavily on Friday night, and the track could have been back to nearly good, would have been a dead track had we not had that heavy rain. Madison County, great in second, Surely Sacred, not helped by the track, and the Chosen One is a heck of a run from last, and in a twinkling with the mid-race move, I thought very good. So Kiwi, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th.
And very good, all 4 of them. It's easy to, when Madison County looms up to win on the inside at 200, there's always the optical illusion when you go to the inside that you're going to run past horses because you see them coming in, but they don't actually close the gap, obviously, quite as much as it seemed. And it's easy to think he didn't stay the 2,400 metres, but he did beat all the rest of them. Yep. So he's actually stayed pretty good.
Yeah. It's not his forte, though, is it?
No, look, he's probably more of a 2,000 metre horse, but the winner...
It shows his class, though, doesn't it? Because there's not a staying horse in about his first 4 dams. I looked at his pedigree, pins out of a no excuse needed mare, but he's just a good horse.
And the winner might be a really good horse. Look, through the line, the winner was really strong, and he's bred, there's just Derby and Triple Crown blood all over his breed.
He's won 5 of his 8 starts, he gets on pace, he runs good sectionals. He's only been beaten once on a wet track, which is also helpful.
So, and remarkable to think that Madison County, you know, being by Pins and Brutal being by O'Reilly, 2 deceased stallions who have just had a remarkable 3-year-old season, both out of the same crop, obviously the Derby winner and the Doncaster, or Derby 2nd Doncaster winner. Your horse was good, Surely Sacred?
Yeah, it was great. We were just about crying Well, the rain came down on Friday night, and he also 3 wide the trip, but that was slowly run, so that wasn't a massive disadvantage. But he's a good horse, yeah.
And he goes to the paddock?
Yeah, he's had enough.
Okay, and so Madison County will go to the paddock. I hope he stays here. I think he would, because they can prepare him here, then race in Australia, so there's no need to worry too much about it.
Wouldn't that be a match-up in the spring, Madison County and Melody Bell?
Well, speaking to Andrew Forsman this morning, he was suggesting the Golden Eagle might be their go.
Oh, yeah, $5 million.
$5 million for
1,500.
4-year-olds. And Wayne Hawkes was saying this morning also that that could be the race for Brutal. Now, Brutal has 2 options, because obviously Madison County has to run on. He's a gelding, so he can't retire. Brutal could retire to stud, or they might stick around for the Golden Eagle. Now, that might also play into whether the Autumn Sun sticks around, which a lot of people think he won't. But Madison County, that'll be a really nice race for him. He's a horse who could turn up in the Cox Plate, and you wouldn't be surprised now that there's no Winks.
That'll be him.
And I thought the Chosen One was really good. The Chosen One, hell of a week for him, winning at Awapuni, flying across there, coming from fastest last 600. He would suggest that he's a horse who might be a little bit good to race here next season once he finds that form again. So lots of things to look forward to for lots of horses. Spoke to Jamie Richards this morning. In a Twinkling is coming home, not heading on to Queensland, as was an option for them. And Platinum Invader, who underperformed, Lisa Latta told me this morning, is also coming home, and the New Zealand Derby 3rd place getter will head to the paddock.
So we didn't get the chocolates, but the Kiwi Connection's pretty happy after the Australian Derby.
Well, very good effort by both horses. Slowly run race didn't help them when they got back in the rear, but game run by Madison County, and the Chosen One ran up to his New Zealand form last week.
What's the plan from now, taking both home?
The Chosen One will go home. The Chosen One may run in the Frank Packer in 2 weeks' time, but Madison County, he's done enough. He's got the $1 million Australian for the season, which is a good effort because he's had a few setbacks and hold-ups.
So overall, your Derby preparation this year, how are you feeling?
Pretty happy. You know, if you can be placed over here, they're good horses and they've got a lot of depth.
Yeah, look, really exciting. He gave us a good cheer anyway. Look, he's got caught 3 deep, he had cover. Look, the winner, to be fair, at the 300, he hadn't come off the bridle and was just, doing handstands. But I was a bit worried as soon as he let his head go, he'd plug in the ground, and that's what happened again. He just, just sort of dowed out the last bit. But look, super effort. He's, done a great job this season, and nothing wrong with 3rd in AJC Derby.
Yeah, courageous run. Sort of looked like he's going to get a nice spot, 3 back, 3 deep with cover. And Opie just said he just wanted to get on with the job, so he let him slide, and stuck at it really well. So. I think the track's probably paying a little bit worse than the slow rating, but he's a very, very tough horse, and I'm really proud of him. He did a good job.
Yeah, just watching the race, both got into really good positions, I thought. Earlier, I was really happy the way things were going, and Chapada in particular got into a really good rhythm. Probably about the half mile, he got a horse either side and got a bit of a buffeting around, and he did get held up briefly, but Ollie said when he got in the clear, it was very disappointing. But he said it was just the ground. He said he just couldn't pick his legs up out of the ground once the pressure went on. And whereas he got through Rose Hill, this is totally different. And Craig said the same about the other bloke too. He just said he just didn't feel the same horse in the ground today. I think it was probably just that little bit looser at Rose Hill, and here just a bit more holding. And you get different types of tracks, but they're not really that far apart. But neither one of the horses into the ground. So just back to the drawing board.
Yeah, back to the drawing board when you've got a couple of favourites and get beaten. You just got to carry on. We didn't grab the Australian Derby, so maybe that ripping 2-year-old filly might grab some spoils off Godolphin in the Inglis Sire Stakes. Probably all lined up. We were fairly confident she'd run a good race. And, well, again, actually, Bruce, as we pick it up here, she was never on the bit, really, was she? Never travelling.
I actually stopped watching her at about the 600 metres. She was struggling around the bend. Off the bridle, under the whip, going nowhere.
Last 50 was good.
Yeah, and then the last 100 metres, just watch her in the Cambridge stud Lindsay colours. She tags on, actually gets a bit tight for room as she's closing again late. It's a terrific run given how much trouble she was in coming round the turn. But Microphone offers second in the slipper, comes up and becomes a very valuable colt with this size produce win, the son of Exceed and Excel. But yeah, Probabile doing us proud really, because she obviously wasn't handling the track around the bend.
You can never tell with 2-year-old fillies whether they will go on at 3, because so often they don't, but you'd swear this one will.
Oh,
Man, she's the real deal.
She is.
I think she's the best 2-year-old filly we've sent to Australia in a long, long time. I know Melody Bell won a Group 1 in Queensland, but Melody Bell's a 2-year-old wasn't as good as this horse.
No.
She's more X Factor, and Rude Awakening went over there after she won the Karaka Million. I spoke to Jamie this morning, and look, she's going to come home. He would think there is the option to go to the Champagne, but I don't think they'd really want to.
No.
To be honest, I think she would come home. Then they have to make a big decision, and I think it's a little bit easier now because of the Karaka Classic. If there was no Karaka Classic, you would say, look, do we go over to the 1,000 guineas or all the races in the carnival over there in the spring? But it's so much easier to stay here now and race in the 1,000 guineas and try and get your Group 1 and then have a $1 million race around the corner, then you can go back to Sydney.
Launch.
So that's what it's done, that race. It's created a reason to keep these horses here because, to be perfectly honest, she's good enough to race the best horses in Australia. So lots to look forward to with her. And Cap's a really big week for Cambridge Stud for Brendan and Joe Lindsay.
Yeah, so we're moving on now to the sprint race. The fan favourite is probably Red Zell. I think the tote favourite was Trapeze Artist. The Victoria favourite was Sunlight, but there was one even faster in the turbocharged field here.
What an extraordinary performance. Last, come to the outside. There were very few horses came this route to win on the day, but he did. He's just a phenomenal sprinter. Sunlight was very good. She was 3 wide on pace, the 3-year-old filly, and Osmond Bulls had to cut the corner possibly a bit slower down near there, but no excuses when they win like this. Champagne Cuddles was a bit held up back in 5th there.
They seem to be taking turns, these turbocharged horses, and I don't mind. It's just good racing, isn't it?
It's good for a race like the Everest as well. Imagine the Everest if there was a sprinter like Winks or Black Caviar-esque, where they're going to win the race and no one else can be competitive.
And it didn't rain.
He's got options, this horse. He's a big, strong son of Lope de Vega, and they're looking at going to maybe Hong Kong and then to Ascot. And on that, you'd be saying, well, why wouldn't you take him? Osborne Balls was really interesting because there was a stack of money for him. He was heavily, heavily backed on Betfair. And then all the money came through the corporates, and he just got smashed on the tote. But he actually was just okay. Like, he rode him beautifully, Hugh. I just don't think he was good enough. There's no case you could make he was in the same class on the day as the winner, who is one of those horses who doesn't have a lot of hype about him, Santa Ana Lane, but he's obviously pretty darn good.
He's been spruiked to win some big races and never quite got it done, but he did yesterday on the TJ Smith.
He got the Stratty last year, won the Goodwood and the Stratty. So I just think that at that high level, if you win the Everest, for example, with Red Zell, you get all the hype about you, but it's only one race. And Red Zell's won like $13 million by winning, or $15 million by winning two important races. Whereas this horse's form over the last 18 months has been better than Red Zell's consistently.
At the other end of the scale from the sprinters, the Group 2 chairman's quality was the dress rehearsal for the Sydney Cup. And we were probably watching Sir Charles Road, and they'd have to be happy with old Charlie after this run, although the winner was quite impressive.
I thought he's terrific. Track conditions wouldn't have been great for him. He's got that low daisy clipper action, not suited to a wet track out wide. He's grinding in the ground at this stage, but he just keeps closing. He won this race last year on a good track and then went on to run 3rd in the Sydney Cup on a good track. He's back on target because things haven't gone smoothly for him this season.
Swaro, Samari 3rd just in front of Sir Charles Road, and Supernova.
Happy to be on a shoulder. I thought the winner was a bit all over the place right-handed, but he's a good trainer, Archie Alexander. I think he's a trainer who, with the right horsepower, OTI are a big believer in him. He could win some nice races somewhere along the line. So.
The favourite was the horse on the fence there, the Supernova, having just its 3rd start in Australia.
The Hawks horse.
Sweated up a lot, but he looks like he'll be ready to go for the Sydney Cup.
Vinda Dance and Zacata were just okay. Zacata didn't get a lot of room in the home straight, but he was only okay. In saying that, he was only okay in the same race last year and was beaten in nose by Who Shot the Barman in the Sydney Cup. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that form turn around totally, depending on how much the track dries this week.
But you'd have to think that my boy, not my boy Charlie, Sir Charles Road is possibly our best chance, and Lance O'Sullivan was suitably chuffed afterwards yesterday.
You know, I thought it was really good run. I thought the best part of his run was probably the last 100 metres. So, he found the line really well. And the jockey, Blake, gave us confidence going forward. He said he possibly struggled a bit in the conditions, and he said he found it difficult to quicken on the track out there today. So he said, his best chances of performing or going close in the Sydney Cup would be on better footing.
So is he our best chance, Sir Charles Rowe, do you think?
I was just wondering if Lance O'Sullivan still gets ID going into pubs.
Avoid
leaning over the rail.
Our best chance is Glory Days.
Okay.
She galloped beautifully between races the other day.
I think he wasn't that happy with that gallop.
I thought she was fantastic. I thought, I'll put it this way, how's she not our best chance? She came out and won the Auckland Cup. She beat all those other horses apart from Takata. Or Vinda Dance raced in a weight for age race, but it was only adequate that day.
What sort of weight she got?
Light.
Nothing.
She's going to get in with 52, 53.
Yeah.
Okay. She has to be our best chance, I would have thought. But
loves a bit of cut.
Yep. Sir Charles Rowe, we're in with a chance. We're in with a chance because it doesn't look the deepest Sydney Cup in years. But
all right, on way in, join us for a look at the future coming up and also the future of racing, future of stallions in New Zealand perhaps, but we'll reflect rather on a wonderful past before we go into that for the rest of Weigh In.
Well, it's certainly a sad day for Mr. McKee. We always showed him the utmost respect. It was never Trevor, it was Mr. McKee. And I rode for him for many years. I was second tier to Peter Johnson when Peter was riding for him. But he was just a real gentleman, an absolute gentleman. He was very fiercely competitive, but. Just one of those great, iconic New Zealand racing people, and he'll be sadly missed, but of course well remembered and remembered for all the right things. He was very well liked, very well respected, and certainly a real gentleman of New Zealand racing.
Isn't it so sad? I mean, we fell in love in Australian racing with Sunline, and we got to know Trevor through Sunline, and we got to know how an astute horseman he was, and how appropriate today that I'm sure will reflect a lot with memories of Sunline, who came here and won at Doncaster as the 3-year-old filly, and then came back a couple of years later and was able to lump a huge weight to be able to win. I mean, when you look at Hartnell, he's got 58 kilos today. I mean, that's the weight that Sunline as a mare was able to carry to win. Trevor McKee is an all-time great of New Zealand racing, and New Zealanders and Australians are like brothers. So I think everyone in Australian racing is very sad today, but an opportunity to reflect on an unbelievable career.
Yeah, very sad. An iconic man and obviously a great family man, a great ambassador to racing, to any sport. And I don't need to touch on what he's achieved, but he has touched on a lot of trainers' lives, and he'll be sadly missed. So yeah, my thoughts go out to Stephen and obviously Mrs. McKee and all the family, because it must be a very tough time, because he's been around in their lives as well as our lives and been a very important part of it.
Oh, just a wonderful man. Obviously think back to Sunline, but I think back to when I was an apprentice. I rode a lot with Trevor when he brought horses to Hawke's Bay and Palmerston, and yeah, great man. My brother Ricky started off with Trevor, so a lot of great memories. Great man in racing, and he'll certainly be missed. But my association with him was nothing but great memories.
What a great horseman, and what a great family the McKees are. I think we've lost one of our great statesmen in horse racing in this part of the world, and what he did for racing in New Zealand and the legacy that Sunline will leave in this country, the whole family should be immensely proud of Trevor, and we'll miss him dearly.
Well, he was a gentleman, but we got to know him so well in Australia. I mean, Sunline had such a long career here, so it was those days at Moonee Valley and here at Royal Randwick with the Doncasters, etc. So, no, a wonderful man, and I actually met him over in New Zealand on one trip as well. But he was a gentleman. He was a old school in many ways. I love the fact that his son came through as well. But we really look up to him. We look up to his horse too. She's one of the great horses of all time. Certainly a 3-time All-Australian Horse of the Year. You know, it's pretty hard to do. So. Sadly missed. I know the last few months were pretty tough for him and everything, so we're going to miss him, but always remember him. A great New Zealand trainer, and you've had plenty of them.
The main yearling barn is behind us, which is on the site of the old yearling barn, but basically we will have a main wing here, which will be the colt section. There are 2 other wings, which will be fillies barns, and then there'll be a parade area in the middle. Over here, we have the stallion complex. There'll be 8 stallion boxes in there, and the idea is that the access out of the stallion barn will be from the middle, so they will parade in this area here. Stallion barn yearling complex and the buildings behind us. All the steel work is done in New Zealand. The concrete pads were prepared locally. The fit out, the roof, comes from Auckland. We're standing in the middle of what was the old parade area here. Sir Tristram has managed to survive in the corner here, and I don't think he'll be going anywhere. The Cambridge Stud office is due to open in about 5 weeks' time. These are the old stallion paddocks, which have basically been given a bit of an upgrade. We now have capacity for 9 stallion paddocks in here, and obviously, as you can see, we're planting trees and sort of generally beautifying it. In terms of timing, I'd say that we are probably well past a third of the way there, on our way to halfway there, but the next 4 months is going to be very interesting.
Just thinking it might be a wee bit poignant, the colours with probably all chasing down the Godolphins in that big race at Sydney yesterday, because Cambridge Stud certainly are serious about chasing down the international competition, you feel, with that little story.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cracking horse.
There's no point building all those buildings without bringing in stallions. That's just pointless. And they've gone up to 2 very good ones. Al Manzour's obviously a very serious horse. He's a European 3-year-old of the year, but Roaring Lions a more serious horse.
Okay.
Like he won last year. He won a whole bunch of. This is the last of his Group 1 wins. He had 4 Group 1 wins last year against older horses.
In the maroon colours coming out wide.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So he's in the Qatar Racing colours, and this was the last of them. When he won the Eclipse at Sounddown, as we watch him getting home here, they actually team rode against him. Aidan O'Brien's horses did, and up there you're allowed to team ride. No one seems to care. But to defy that and beat an Aidan O'Brien trio of horses is incredibly hard to do. Brave horse. Bruce rated the best 3-year-old in the world. And whether he was or not, it's hard to, because Justify was so good last year, but he won 4 Group 1s against older horses. But now I think in the last 10 years, we've all been exposed to how good these European horses is. And he's beaten the Ben Battles and those horses easily. When he won the race in Ireland, he beat 6 other Group 1 winners. And when he won the race, the Juddmonte, which is at York, he beat 6 other Group 1 winners. And when we now get exposed to how good the European horses are, particularly at a mile and further, you realise he must be a very, very sharp horse. Now, he stands at £40,000 in England at Tween Hills. He's going to be $35,000 here. So
it's less than half price.
Exactly. It's a very fair buy. You would think from Cambridge Stud's point of view, were they tempted to buy into an Australian speed horse? And initially I thought to myself maybe they would try and do that, but I don't think people want to breed those horses here as much. Like the best sprinting type mares in Australia aren't going to be sent to New Zealand to go to our version of Schnitzel. So if we're going to keep trying to breed these horses who are going to be outstanding milers like Brutal, for example, yesterday, and 2,000 metre horses and beyond, because this horse ran 3rd in a derby, I think that these are the type of horses we do need to buy rather than... I think Waikato Stud's done a good thing with Travachi. They bought a speed horse, but I'm not sure we can... I'm not sure getting the best speed stallion in Australia is the right way to go. So getting the best miler in Europe is maybe a smarter move.
So racetrack performances aside, for me it's a wee bit interesting that they've gone down this American theme with the bloodlines a bit. The Kittens, the Settlers Wells line, but through the American side of it with El Prado. There's the Street Cry on the other side. What are they thinking about there? Where's that going? Is that just a cross back into the Savabeel type mare?
Oh, I think it's firstly performance. His race performance was the key. I haven't analysed his pedigree strongly yet. It was only announced through the week, but Kitten's Joy is respected as the best turf horse in America, so it's no surprise to see him produce a horse like this.
And Bruce, no Danehill in the blood.
Yeah.
You take how many mares in Australasia have Danehill blood now, and Fastnet Rocks and all the ones that are going to come, and that's an outcross for them. So again, I think it's a beautiful compliment to the Australian market, rather than going head-to-head with the Australian market. And Qatar have suggested they'll support him with 20 mares a year. Well, that's a pretty decent head start.
And also a first-season sire with his profile will be a lot more expensive. He's in Australia, so he's value for money.
Yep.
Yeah, Coolmore have Justify coming down too in terms of great Northern Hemisphere horses. He's shuttling with American Pharaoh this year. So some great stallions down under, but that'll be an impressive addition to the lineup at Cambridge Stud Roaring Lion. I actually thought the Irish Champion Stakes was his best run because it was on top of the ground and he really showed a good kick, good turn of foot, whereas that race we saw was a bit weak for him.
I thought they rode against him, as Aidan O'Brien is wont to do. But hey, let's be honest, we don't know enough about it, but we know he's bloody good.
Yeah.
So, shall we try and finish what we started, way back in, what was it, September? When we started out with the weigh-in season, we were talking about things called the Masara Report, pondering the future of New Zealand racing. We thought we might finish with a wee bit of a segment on that today with the chairman of the Ministerial Advisory Committee to join us live from trackside, Dean McKenzie from trackside from Christchurch, Dean McKenzie. First question, Dean, was it harder to put together the committee's proposal than it was to run the Los Angeles Marathon?
Yeah, I think any marathon's hard to run, especially when you're as slow as me. But no, we'll worry about the next one when it comes. But the last one was pretty slow, so no, it was easier.
To start you off, I think generally people in racing, Dean, think that Mac making all the calls, giving them to the Minister of Racing, and whatever you suggest is going to get put through your interpretation of the Masara Report. Is it not quite like that?
Yeah, before you guys put me under the microscope, under the blowtorch, can I also just add my own personal condolences and thoughts with the McKee family? When I was first starting off in the game, 30 years ago, even as a young racing secretary, Trevor certainly played a large influential role. So in my own career, so my thoughts with the McKee family. But getting back to your question, look, you're right. There is probably it's an understandable position out in the industry. There's probably a slight misconception as to where we fit into the whole equation. The terms of reference, which I know you and Sheldon, we've talked about on a number of occasions when we've talked, the terms of reference are that were produced in the middle of December by the Minister's Office, is essentially our riding instructions for the term that we've been engaged, or the race that we've been engaged to run. And that race really focuses on us putting in place a detailed plan to operationalise the Masara Report itself. So I think if people just take that one sentence as a centre point of what our role is, that pretty much does sum it up. We're there to take the Masara Report and look at it, and obviously then look to the best way of operationalising it. And the terms of reference set out a number of obviously some of the points that will come across through that pathway or through that process. But essentially that's our role, is to advise the Minister the best way to operationalise the recommendations that John Masara has put through in his report.
I guess the question everyone's asking, Dean, what's the timeline going forward?
Yeah, well, thankfully we're on target at the moment. I think our first hurdle, if you like, or our first key touch point was the end of February, when our interim report was due with the Minister's Office. So, when you're only formed in the middle of December, and the end of February is the time where, we've got to make a first report to the Minister, and you throw in, the New Year, Christmas period and all the rest of it, there was a real commitment from the whole committee and our support team and DIA to make sure that we gave that 120% to make sure that, we weren't the ones at all slowing down the process, because I think the industry's united, and certainly the Minister's Office has 100% understanding of the fact that time's of the essence, and the sooner we can get all the stuff put together and ticked off and whatnot, the better. So that was our first key hurdle, and we met that. I'll have to be honest, it was probably late in the day on February the 28th that he did actually get our report, but we were pretty focused on making sure we had that in. Then there's this process we're in at the moment where the Minister's Office and government officials and ultimately Cabinet consider the Masara Report itself, the recommendations that John made, the advice that we've given the Minister on those recommendations, and also the Department of Internal Affairs' own views and comments on both those things that I've just mentioned, both our report and John. So we're in that process now. hopefully in the next few weeks that process will reach a conclusion, and then obviously we've got the final hurdle for our committee, which is formed through till the end of June, when we have to have a final report back to the Minister.
Morning, Dean. Thank you for joining us today. Just a little bit of confusion, Dean, because I know sometimes these terms can be confusing for people, particularly watching at home. When you say operationalise the Masara report, for example, if you and your committee, after researching it, didn't like a point in the report, what does operationalise mean if you don't like it? Do you go back to the Minister and say, well, actually, we don't think that's something we should implement, or we should change that? Or is operationalising something mean just finding a way to make it happen?
Well, I think it's a mixture of all of those things, because, of course, if there'll be, and there still is, there's always things that come out of left field, and the wagering marketplace is quite a dynamic environment, as I'm sure you're aware. Being a good punter, you've got a good understanding of what happens out there, and it's quite a fluid situation. So if you go back through, John started undertaking his report in April last year. That report had to be back to the Minister's office at the end of July. Then, of course, it was the John's report was made public. Then there was the natural and completely robust process of getting public submissions on that report. So that went through. I think public submissions went through towards the end of October. And of course, then they were to be collated, and certainly we've had the opportunity to consider those as well. So when you look at that term operationalise, you've not only got John's report, you've also got, there was 1,700 odd submissions, public submissions that were made on John's recommendations. So when you look at the whole operationalise element, you've got to take all those things into consideration. So what we've done is we've very much, given the timelines that we had, when it's obviously extremely important that we engage and consult where possible. So given the timeframes we had, we spent a lot of time ensuring that the views of the key stakeholders in the industry and the wider public submissions were a central part of our deliberations on each of those. So we had the benefit of, which John didn't have, we had the benefit of actually being able to look and examine and test some of those recommendations with, or all of those recommendations with the submissions that were made on them. So when you could put all that together, hopefully that gets some kind of answer to your question, because you've got to, we had to and should do incorporate all of those things into the final interim report and then into our final report that we make to the Minister.
Dean, one of the hottest topics in the report and one of the most important parts of what you guys are going to recommend to the Minister is the outsourcing of at least the wagering side of what the New Zealand Racing Board does, basically the gambling licence. What process did you go through to make a decision on whether A, that should be done, shouldn't be done, or whether this should be investigated more? Did you take presentations and information from, for example, suitors like Tabcorp and Sportsbet, who are the two being banded around, from outside agencies? How much information were you given to that, and were you actually shown the soft options tests and the offers that were earlier made? Because I suppose it's hard to suggest what to do when you don't know the exact numbers floating around. So what input did you get around that?
I think all those things you've touched on are a good example of a very important point that the industry needs to be across, and that's that our work didn't stop on the 28th of February and it is still going on today. And in fact, we've got a meeting, a further meeting, I think our 6th meeting in Wellington tomorrow. So what's happening is that the process is ongoing. So we didn't get to a point where there was a line in the sand that we got to and said, well, that's it. It's a process that obviously started last April, as I just touched on, and is still, when you're talking major industry reform, which is what we're talking about, I use the analogy of the example that you've just given, in that you could argue that the formation of the TAB in the 1950s is potentially or possibly the single most important development in the history of New Zealand racing. So if you put that in the context of that's just one, the future of that is just one of 17 recommendations that John made, then that probably establishes quite accurately the enormity of the reform process that we're undertaking as an industry, not just us as a committee. We're just one small part of that. So it's not something that you're going to flick a switch and finish, or start or finish. There's going to be some parts of that reform process that are going to be able to be done earlier than others. And I think one of the key words in the terms of reference that the Minister gave us, and we certainly is one we focused on, was the word prioritise. We were asked to prioritise what recommendations were best set to add value, etc., etc. So when you put all those 17 into a big melting pot, and outsourcing is understandably, given what I've just said about the formation of the TAB, is a very, very important part of that those 17 recommendations that John made. But that outsourcing recommendation is just one of them. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the February 28th timeline that we reached produced a work plan for us not only to have got to that point, to show, we had to show the Minister what we'd done and what we recommended or advised, were able to advise him on at that point. But even past that, it's a fluid process that which is ongoing. So that's why it's been broken into an interim and a final report, because the reform process is something that won't be it wasn't finished on February the 28th, obviously, isn't going to be finished on June the 30th, and won't even be finished at the end of the year. Because again, you can't undertake the reform that this industry is looking to undertake, and with the support of the government and the Minister's office, that's something that's a process that the industry will likely never go through again. So it's just one that some elements of it will be advanced quicker than others, and some others there's just a few more barriers or potential barriers or issues that you have to work through to get to that same point. So once we're able to discuss and we get some direction from Cabinet as to where the government looks to go, that'll enable us to firm up the later parts of that work plan for the Minister.
So, Dean, it sounds like we need about 30 minutes. We've got about 3, if that. Can you say what you did prioritise initially?
No, I can't do that, Sheldon.
This one, Dean, point 12, the legislation divest racing club property and assets of the code to the code regulatory bodies. Would that happen?
I think the Minister's made some public comments that I think give a real steer towards what the prioritising definition is, if you like. He's talked publicly through various channels about the 2 R's, reform and revenue. So what I think is the best way of framing that up and giving some direction is that we need to add value. We need to create a positive environment for the change process to get underway and really start to gather momentum. And I think the 2 R's, the reform and revenue, which the Minister has indicated publicly is the focus of the process, and where we're looking to take a potentially busy legislative program through the next 6, 12, 18 months, depending on what Cabinet come back with, that's where our focus is.
Dean, I believe there were people from the Internal Affairs Department working alongside you guys. Were they able to write the early stages of any legislation that could therefore get voted on by Cabinet through Parliament? So, for example, we can have tax relief, whether that's an appointed consumption tax or a racefields legislation or whatever it ends up being called, because no one really cares. Is there any chance we could get that through for this budget?
Well, look, I think the timeline that's set out in the terms of reference clearly indicates that, and the Minister's made these comments, that it is a matter of weeks that the reform process will create a clearer pathway and a clearer set of directions for everyone, for us and for the industry going forward. So, with the timeline has been very tight for from their formation in the middle of December. So it would indicate that we didn't get the time frame that's been put in front of us, i.e. the end of February. The terms of reference talk about further deliberations in March by the government and the Minister's office. All of those timelines are there for a reason. That the the fiscal year is for central government is close at hand. So all of those things are put in place as a pathway to indicate that time is of the essence, and that's certainly something that the government and the Minister's office have been well aware of, and we've been certainly invested in to make work.
Dean, I'm asking this question not for myself because I don't work for a racing club. I'm asking it for the hundreds of people around the country who do. Mr Massara made a recommendation in his report that we should close a certain amount of tracks, which is up to him. NZTR have said they're going to take submissions on this and therefore they will decide what tracks close. Is there going to be a recommendation from MAC over a process which could change both of those? Because I get the feeling that there's people out there thinking, well, hold on, do we still have a club? Do we still have racing next season? Is there going to be a recommendation from MAC about what process these clubs should be going through, or are the ones that Mr Massara said are going to be closed, going to be closed?
Well, yeah, we've clearly given a view to the Minister on where we saw, because there are a significant number of recommendations and a large amount of the Massara review was directed towards venues. And we've certainly given the Minister, our committee's view on what pathway that should take. I think in any reform process, Michael, it's natural for uncertainty to be prevalent within that industry, and as is no different. But what I think that with the timeframes that we've touched on that are included in our terms of reference and what we've been working towards, there is a real expectation and a real drive that time of uncertainty is minimised, and that we ensure that there's as little of that as possible. So once Cabinet can consider our advice or our interim report, and we get some direction on as to what feedback we've got on that and what the next steps are, I think that'll be the first step for some clarity around that. The venue issue is certainly one, without being able to get into it in too much depth now, it's certainly one that I'm very, very happy to talk about in the future once the pathways become more clearer. But the venue issue's been around as long as Adam was a cowboy. I personally have been to most venues in New Zealand, not all, but virtually all, from Dargaville to Riverton, and I certainly have a first-hand understanding of how important some of those venues are to communities throughout New Zealand, both rural and provincial and metropolitan areas. So it's naturally one that becomes a focus of a large industry like ours. I mean, you only need to look at bowling clubs and even the Freemasons. I was reading during the week of a capital program to divest some of the capital that they've got tied up in buildings around the country. So it's for a not-for-profit or / sporting environment. That venue issue is one that's not uncommon, and it's one that we have given a view on, and we're looking forward to getting some feedback on that so that we can start to unravel that and look to create some clearer pathways for it going forward.
Hey Dean, thanks for joining us. It did feel like we were needing of more time, but at least we've got a process in play, and here's hoping that the process comes quicker sooner than later. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we can talk again on Weigh In the future.
Yeah, look, thanks for having me on, Sheldon. In some ways I do apologise for not being able to give more detail because it's something I'm very happy to do, and very, very happy to talk about the process once we ourselves get some more clarity from the formal side that process that we're in at the present time. So I think the communication with the industry is something that's very important, and something that once we do get that clearer pathway, that's something that we're very committed to ensuring that we undertake.
Thanks again for coming in, Dean. We might have room for the Grand National and some season highlights before we finish up with Weigh In for the season shortly.
They came Annabelle flying. Valsalido is next in fifth. from the staying on Gasline Boy, 2 from the end. Pleasant Company makes a mistake and Tiger Roll has come there cruising to the outside. Tiger Roll now into the lead from Pleasant Company. Bless the Wings in third, then Annabelle Fly. There's the then clear from Valsalino and Gasline Boy. Tiger Roll by 3 lengths. And he's doing it easily from Pleasant Company in second. They're 10 lengths away to Bless the Wings. Annabelle Flies back in fourth as they run now towards the elbow. And it's Tiger Roll who's out in front under Davy Russell, the oldest rider in the race. He sends his mount clear at the elbow by 5 lengths to Pleasant Company in second. Bless the Wings in third. Then Annabelle Fly. They're halfway up the running though. And it's Tiger Roll under Davy Russell for Gordon Elliott. He'll win his second national if he can see out the final 100 yards. Pleasant Company's gaining ground. Tiger Roll seeing it out. Tiger Roll. I got the eye of the
Yes, in the early hours of this morning, Tiger Roll joined Red Rum as one of the only back-to-back winners of the English Grand National Steeplechase. He was a Godolphin reject, apparently. They bought him for $70,000 as a weanling and gave him back for 10 as a yearling.
He's only a little fella. He's only 15.2 hands, and the trainers already said that they expect not to return next year to try and do a Red Rum and win for the 3rd time because they could get 12 stone. Trainer got on a plane heading home to where he was heading home to tonight and said, everybody on the plane gets free drinks on me, but if you order a cheese panini, I'm going to kick you off the flight. So that's the Irish way, Michael O'Leary. So a great story behind him. You can get more information on that on racing.co.uk because it's Racing Post is probably the best place to go. But Tiger Roll, 2-time winner for the first time in 40 years since Red Rum did it on the way to his 3.
15.2 hands too, little runt of a thing.
Like you.
Yes. See, there's fast things in small packages. We've got a season highlight. Shall I go, or do you want to go first, Bruce? Bruce, you go, mate.
Glory days for me. That's the great story, isn't it? The horse from Waverley winning the Group 1, and for Sam Collett as well. And that's how you celebrate a Group 1.
And it could win the Sydney Cup yet.
What's yours?
Mine was, I'm going to, since we sort of had a jumping theme just there, I'm going to go right back to the start of the season, if you like, and Jack Frost. I thought him winning those 2 Group 1 steeplechases and the battlers' story around him and just the memories of yesteryears that he's provided.
And one of the owners passed away this week, I believe.
Did too. I think they had a ceremony for him during the week. And so that will add, I suppose, to the group going forward, and they're looking to take on Australia this year, and, you know, you'd think he might fly the flag.
The most perfect racing story of the year for a journalist was the Karaka Classic. James McDonald, who people said wouldn't make it back, made it back to his home track, while the man who supported him the most, the absolute most, Sir Peter Valla, winning the Karaka Classic with Longleaf. The second horse was 126 to 1, the David and Goliath size of the horses, but also this was the man who created the Karaka Classic, or the Karaka Million Night. It was a perfect story in a race which also contained the dual winners of the Filly of the Year and Madison County, who will win 3-year-old of the Year. That was, for me, the perfect encapsulation of the racing season, the Karaka Classic on Karaka Million Night.
And I must admit, it made my top 3 Karaka Million Night. It's not been a blast, but it's been a bit of a blur. Where do these racing seasons go? Until there's a next time, I suppose. Mā te wā. See you next season, probably on Weigh In. Thanks for joining us.